Hello all. Today let's have a look at the novel Fatelessness written by Imre Kertesz. Imre Kertesz was a Hungarian author and the recipient of the 2002 Nobel Prize for Literature. He was awarded the Nobel Prize for writing that upholds the fragile experience of the individual against the barbaric arbitrariness of history. His novel Fatelessness or Sorgstallensag describes the experiences of Gaiuri or George Coves in the concentration camps of Auschwitz, Buchenwald, and Sayers. Fatelessness is set in Hungary in the midst of the Holocaust and the Second World War. When the novel begins, George Coves or Gaiuri explains to his teacher that his father has asked him to stay home from school. The teacher sends him home. Gaiuri's father is about to be sent away for labor service, and this is Gaiuri's last chance to spend with him. Gaiuri's father gives over the control of his shop to his assistant Mr. Suto because the latter is completely above board regarding his race and will be allowed to run the business. Mr. Suto offers to write a receipt, but Gaiuri's father insists there is no need for such things between the two of them. Gaiuri's stepmother has a list of things his father will need in the labor camp. She has procured most of the items at this point and is tracking down the things that are still missing. Gaiuri notes that he feels odd walking around in a group of three, all wearing yellow stars. But nevertheless, they go about buying the necessary items. Most of the shops are quite busy, but there is a lot of room in the shop where they buy the knapsack. Gaiuri notices that the shopkeeper is quite nice and that he is trying to avoid having to use the word labor service and instead refers to items that will be useful to the place where he is going. Back at home, Gaiuri runs to Anna-Marie, a girl who lives in the same building. Anna-Marie, Gaiuri notes, is like him, 14 years old or thereabouts. She invites Gaiuri to play rummy after supper with her sisters, but Gaiuri declines the invitation when he remembers that his father is soon to leave. Instead, he returns home where his stepmother has made his supper. Gaiuri's father refuses to eat more than a share of food, claiming that he is not hungry, and Gaiuri also follows the same example. After a little while, they are visited by their extended family. Uncle Willie, who used to be a journalist, claims that he heard from a confidential source that there is going to be an improvement in their position because of the secret negotiations between the Germans and the Allied powers. The next day, Gaiuri's father leaves, and he tells Gaiuri to stay by his stepmother's side now that he has left. Gaiuri reflects that they could at least send their father off to the labor camp with memories of a nice day. Move on to chapter 2, we find that 2 months have passed since Gaiuri's father was sent to the labor camp. Summer has arrived, and so have new laws limiting the freedom of the Jews in Hungary. Gaiuri has been given a work, and the work is at the Shell Petroleum Refinery Works in Seppel. Gaiuri sees the assignment as a sort of privilege because anyone wearing the yellow star that identifies Jews is not allowed to leave city limits. His stepmother is happy that the work papers will allow him to justify to the guards his existence because he is contributing to the war front. It is manual labor, but Gaiuri does not mind that. His specific work is to repair damage to the oil works, which are frequent target of the air raids. Meanwhile, we find that Mr. Soto remains true to the promises that he made to Gaiuri's father. His father sends letters from the labor camp talking about his labor in the camp and that he is being treated there decently. Gaiuri's biological mother is less pleased to see the situation, and she tries to convince Gaiuri that he should spend more time with her and that he should demonstrate his love for her with actions rather than words. However, in Gaiuri's view, It remains correct to live with his stepmother because his father told him to. Gaiuri wants to remain loyal to his father's wishes, but he admits that he feels uncomfortable when he leaves his biological mother. Jewish community members tried hard to hide from the air raids. It was while in hiding during one such air raid that Gaiuri kissed Anna-Marie for the first time. At first, they claim their kiss is due to the bomb, but their relationship nevertheless continues. They have their first quarrel when they argue about the nature of Jewishness. Actually, his argument is with Anna-Marie's older sister, who's bothered by the hate people feel for her when they see the yellow star she wears. Gaiuri tells her that she would do the same if she were another person without yellow stars. Anna-Marie stops bringing Gaiuri to her house. As we proceed to chapter 3, we find that Gaiuri is on his way to work the next morning when the bus is stopped by a policeman. The policeman asks all the Jews to present themselves. Actually, this is a trick that the policeman has played on all the Jews, and Gaiuri too fell for the same trick. Even the policeman is amused when he sees the boys, and they send the boys back into hiding before the next bus arrives. Gaiuri introduces the boys around him by their nicknames. Leatherware is named for his trade. He is one of the few boys who do not attend school. Smoker can always be found with a cigarette. Fancy man is handsome and talks easily to women. Rosenfield is nicknamed Rossi, and the boys often defer to his judgment. It is Rosie who finally approaches the policeman to ask whether they will get in trouble for arriving late to work and when the boys will be free to leave. After all, the boys have decided this inconvenience must be some kind of mistake. However, the policeman admits that he is not sure what will be done to the boys, and for now he must wait for further orders. The policeman eventually asks the boys to come with him to a customs house. The boys are taken away and they are asked to remove their shirts. The policeman remains polite throughout the day, but Gaiuri can see the frustration that the policeman feels over not having yet received his orders. Gaiuri eventually sees him talk to another police officer and he senses resignation in their body language. The orders finally arrive in the late afternoon and the boys are presented to a higher authority. The boys are marched publicly through the streets, and Gaiuri notes the hesitant and almost furtive curiosity in the people watching them. The boys eventually reach a collection of grey buildings. The police officers who have now been escorting the column of the boys are now replaced by new guards wearing tight uniforms, high riding boots, and slashes of leather. The commander declares that the Jewish boys can stay in stables, which is where he feels they belong. Gaiuri finds that he wants to laugh at the oddness of the situation, but he wonders how long his stepmother will wait before she realizes that he is not coming home for supper. In chapter 4, Kertesz describes Gaiuri's journey on a train. Gaiuri finds himself on a train thirsty. The others tell him that the initial thirst will go away and will be forgotten. When the train finally does reach its destination, Gaiuri learns by reading a sign that he has arrived in Auschwitz-Birkenau. However, he still does not realize the nature of the location. A prisoner asks Gaiuri his age, and when Gaiuri responds, the prisoner says that he and his friends must present themselves as 16-year-olds when they are inspected. They are proud when they are placed in the fit group. Next, they are taken away to be cleaned. They are told to give up all objects of value. Those who do not will be punished. They remove their clothing and are told to give up their shoes. They are sent to showers in groups of 3 with a single bar of soap. Finally, they are given ill-fitting clothing and new shoes. Life at Auschwitz is described in chapter 5. Gaiuri begins to learn about life at Auschwitz. The prisoners are served a bowl of soup. which Gaiuri and many of his friends dump onto the ground. They claim that it is inedible. They do not realize that the soup is their only source of water, and that bit of bread and coffee that they are given during each morning, their only nourishment. But soon they learn to take in this soup and the food they receive. Gaiuri is also struck by the smell in the air, and he learns that it is produced by the crematorium. He slowly realizes what happens to the people who are not considered fit. Gaiuri is assigned to a blockmaster, and he meets prisoners who have been in Auschwitz for 4 years. He learns that there are different kinds of concentration camps. Auschwitz is a Vernichtungslager or extermination camp, as opposed to an Arbeitslager or a work camp. Gaiuri is separated from his friends and placed once again on the train. This time he is sent to Buchenwald. The train contains 80 people, no luggage, and no women. At Buchenwald, Gaiuri is assigned a number 64921, and he is informed that he must learn to speak it clearly in German whenever he is asked by a guard to identify himself. The number is printed on a piece of cloth rather than tattooed on his skin as in Auschwitz. Gaiuri is also given a star with a big U in its center, which identifies him as Hungarian. There is a crematorium in Buchenwald, but the prisoners explain that it only disposes of the dead rather than exterminates the living, as in Auschwitz. The camp nevertheless kills inmates. However, Gaiuri is moved once again. This time, he is moved to a camp outside of Zeitz. The prisoners are told that since their names come before M in the alphabet, this will be their last transfer. The others would go to Magdeburg. There, Gaiuri meets another prisoner who introduces himself as Bandy Syndrome. Gaiuri is insulted and beaten by a guard, and Bandy Syndrome tells Gaiuri that the guard is a gypsy and a homosexual. Bandy Syndrome is from Ukraine.